Rav Soloveitchik was very fond of saying, whenever he spoke about the topic, that there are 2 days of Purim, whatever part of the world you live in, Yud Dalet and Tezvav. And if it's a Shana Muveris, there are 4 days of Purim. Yud Dalet Tezvav and Adar Rishon, Yud Dalet Tezvav and Adar Sheni. But you don't have to do the mitzvahs every day of the 4 days of Purim. Let's say Pesach is a yontif and Chumash of 7 days. You can't have the Seder whenever you want. The Seder has to be the first night of Pesach. It can't be Bayom. And it can't be on Chol Hamoed. It can't be Shvi Shal Pesach. Same thing. Tkiyas Shofar on Rosh Hashanah has to be in the daytime. You can't say Leil Rosh Hashanah is also Rosh Hashanah. Let me blow the shofar at night. No. Rosh Hashanah is a whole day long. You have to blow the shofar in the daytime. And Pesach is 7 days long. You have to have the Seder at night. So here there are 4 days of Purim. You have to decide which of the 4 days you're going to fulfill the mitzvah. The Gemara has a discussion. Can you fulfill the mitzvah of all the mitzvahs of Purim on Yud Dalet Adar Rishon? So the Gemara has considerations. On the one hand, it should be Ein Mavirin ala mitzvahs. Ein Mavirin ala mitzvah means like this. I come into the room and there's it's sukkahs, and there's a lulav and an esrog on the table over there. Then there's a lulav and esrog on the back table. And they're both muhadarim, they're both equally pretty. So the one you bump into first, that's called Ein Mavirin ala mitzvahs. Here, the Gemara considers that you have a couple of days of Purim. Should you fulfill the mitzvah on the first available opportunity, you bump into Yud Dalet Adar Rishon. So why should you wait till Yud Dalet Adar Sheni to fulfill the mitzvah with the first Purim? So you see that all the 4 days are Purim. The Gemara says, Lesa shel zeh b'zeh shel zeh b'zeh. If you live in a city where they read the Megillah on Yud Dalet, but you're not allowed to have Hesped v'Tainus on Tezvav either, because the both days are Purim. And if you have a Shana Muberes, all 4 days are Purim. Why do we decide to celebrate Purim and Adar Sheni? Why not say Ein Mavirin ala mitzvah? So the Gemara said, because Mismach Gula the Gula Adifa. And Pesach is going to be the Gula from Mitzrayim, and Purim was a Gula in the days of Achashverosh, the Mordechai Esther. So we choose to violate Ein Mavirin ala mitzvah. Mismach Gula the Gula is a more important consideration. But you see from the Gemara that all 4 days are Purim. That's how we used to say all the time. If all 4 days are Purim, so we usually have a din, Baruch Hashem Yom Yom, a pasuk in Tehillim. What does it mean, Baruch Hashem Yom Yom? So the Gemara in Brachas raises the question, we don't give brachas to HaKadosh Baruch Hu at nighttime. You say brachas in the daytime and nighttime. Gemara says, no, what it means is, if there's something unique about the day, at the end of the week comes Shabbos. Once a month comes Rosh Chodesh, then you have a Yontif. So b'chol yom yom, whenever the day has something special to it, so you should mention that in the Birchas Hamazon and in the Brachas and the Shmona Esrei. So if you say all 4 days are Purim, so you should say Al Anisim in all the 4 days. We only say Al Anisim on that day when we are going to celebrate Purim. So the Minchas Oluzer, the Minkacher, he had a lot of times the original opinion. He followed the Levush. The Levush says you have to say Al Anisim, both Yud Dalet and Tezvav, wherever you live. But the Levush is famous that he didn't look back in the Gemara. The Levush has a running commentary on all of Shulchan Aruch. Instead of looking back in the Gemara, he sometimes made up his own explanations, and they're wrong. A lot of times his explanations are wrong. I don't understand why they reprinted the Levush. Around 20, 30 years ago, they reprinted the Levush. There's so many mistakes. What they reprinted? That's the famous story about the Shagas Aryeh, that when he was 90 years old, he went to get a sefer from the bookcase, and the whole bookcase fell on him, and he was old and frail, and they were afraid he's going to be hurt, so they were trying to dig him out from under all the swarm that fell on him. So he said, it's not going to help, he's going to die, that these are all the swarm that he disagreed with. All the Rishonim Achronim, they disagreed. They all decided to gang up together and jump him because he always fought with them. And he asked them all mechila. Everybody was mechila except for the Levush. So he said he's going to die because the Levush wasn't mechila. He died at the age of 90. Not bad. Died at the age of 90. So that's so the minchas. So the Levush assumes like that. If all 4 days are Purim, so you should say Al Anisim on all 4 days. So we assume that B'di'evit, if he said Al Anisim, it's not a hefsek, because it does have a little shaykhis, because all 4 days are Purim. But that's not correct. As Soloveitchik explained, if the day Pesach, Shavuos, Sukkot, Rosh Hashanah, Yom Kippur, Rosh Chodesh, the day is different al Pidin. Chanukah and Purim is only a make-believe difference midrabanan. They per se doesn't have any kedushas hayom. It's only a make-believe din. So the din of Baruch Hashem Yom Yom B'chol Yom Yom Teilem Be'ebechasu Shel Yom doesn't apply here. It's a special takana when they established the Yom Tov of Chanukah. So they established B'halal V'Hidoya. You should say Al Anisim, and that's the lashon of Chanukah. When they established Purim, also they established you should say Al Anisim, but they only reciting Al Anisim doesn't happen automatically. Whenever the day is a special day, so the Mele, you got to mention it. You got to say Al Anisim. It doesn't apply to Yom Tov D'Rabban. Only applies to a real Yom Tov D'Oraisa. You have to have a special takana for that. We don't follow the Minchas Haluza. We don't follow that levush. The Gemara has a din. They learned that from Psukim that Paras Ben Yom and Mikri Paras and Mukal Ben Yom. If you're in Ori HaPrazis, a city that's not a walled city for the days of Yeshua Ben Nun, so then even though you live in Yerushalayim all the time, Amukal Chamos Yeshua Ben Nun, but for Purim you happen to be in Tel Aviv, then you celebrate on Yud Dalet. And all year long you live in Tel Aviv. You happen to be in Purim. You happen to be in Yerushalayim. Then you celebrate on Tezvav. Paras, Banyam, and Mikri, Paras. Even though you're only there for the day. So when is this determined? So the Chazon Ish has a different opinion. In Eretz Yisrael, all yeshiva guys do shtick, so they all do like the Chazon Ish. Chazon Ish says it's determined each day. It's possible to be mechuyev to observe all the mitzvah of Purim both on Yud Dalet and Tezvav. If you're in Tel Aviv on Yud Dalet and you're in Yerushalayim on Tezvav, then you're mechuyev in both. And if you're in Tel Aviv on Tezvav and you're in Yerushalayim on Yud Dalet, you're not mechuyev in anything. You don't have to observe anything. That's the Chazon Ish. Holds like that. So the yeshiva guys, when it's Purim Mishulash, so they every year they try to do shtick, so they go to become mechuyev in everything. So most of the poskim don't assume like the Chazon Ish. Rav Soloveitchik thought that it's nikva the morning of Yud Dalet. It's a yontav that goes for 2 days straight, and wherever you are, the morning of Yud Dalet, that's when it's determined. What does Yud Dalet have to do with Tezvav? The answer is Yud Dalet and Tezvav are both the days of Purim. Like Pesach is a yontav 7 days long, and Sukkot is also. So both days are Purim. So the Purim begins in the morning of Yud Dalet. Usually in the Jewish calendar, all the holidays begin from sundown to sundown. That's how they announce on the radio all the time. Jewish holiday of Passover is going to begin at night. That's what we call Hayom Halach Achar Alayla. All the days of the week begin at Seisar Kachavim, Vahierev, then Vahivoike afterwards. But by Yom Ha'Soilim, by the Goyim, Achreidim say like that, by the Goyim, it's Hayom Halach, it's Halayla Halach Achar Hayom. All the days begin in the morning. So that's what Rav Soloveitchik said. Why is over here, why do we say this is Nikva, whether you're Ben Yerushalayim or Ben Tel Aviv? It's Nikva the morning of Yud Dalet. Why the morning should be Tzeisa Kochavim of the beginning of Yud Dalet? Let's say there's a Rashi in Masechah Sukkot that Leil Sukkos, when it comes Tzeisa Kochavim, the first night of Leil Sukkos, that's when the Chiyuv, the Tilas Lulav is Chal. But you can't shake the Lulav Balayla. Can't be Mekayim the Mitzvah. But the Chiyuv is Chal Balayla, and that's relevant when you get to the Dinim of Dichui. If the Hadassim were puzzled on Leil Sukkot, then they became kosher, they became puzzled again. So Dichui depends on the Chiyuv. The Chiyuv and the Tilas Lulav is Chal Balayla, even though you can't fulfill the mitzvah till the morning. So why not say the same over here? The Chiyuv Mikram Megillah Bayom should be Chal, it says Kacham before. So that's what Rav Soloveitchik always used to say. the Mishnayos and Megillah only talk about Kriyas HaMegillah Bayom. Never says a word about Kriyas HaMegillah Balayla. The Amoraim are the first ones who say it, and Avdaladim and Al two Amoraim are quoted that Chayvam Liks HaMegillah Balayla L'Shanos Bayom. You have to lay in a second time in the daytime, and it's never mentioned in Tanoim. So Rav Shlomo Vilna has in his Sefer. Rav Shlomo Vilna was the Magia in the Vilna Shas, the late 1800s, and he was one of the big dayadim in Vilna. He was the Skan Harabanim when they appointed Rab Chaim Oizer as the chief rabbi in Vilna. He was the Skan Harabanim at that time. So Rav Shlomo Vilna has this suggestion that Rav Soloveitchik liked, that it would appear that Mikra Megillah Leil Purim was instituted Bizman HaAmoraim, not the same as Mikra Megillah Bayom. That's what Tosha says. When we read the Megillah Ba'alayla, we say Shechiona because we haven't read the Megillah in a year. But then when you read the Megillah in the morning, you say again Shechiona. Why? So Taka the Sfardim don't say Shechiona. And embroiders over here down the block, they don't say Shechiona. They're from Frankfurt in Germany, but they have whenever they're Chilufim and Hogim with the Sfardim, they follow this Svardish Haftarahs. Whenever there are two Haftarah, they say this Haftarah for the Sfardim. And in the morning, the second day, Rosh Hashanah, they don't say Shechiona when they blow shofar, because they just blew shofar yesterday. Unless the first day Rosh Hashanah is on Shabbos, then they say Shechiona on the second day. You don't say Shechiona if you just did the mitzvah yesterday. So here, we just read the Megillah Leil Purim. Why did we say again Shechiona in the morning? The Torah says because the Yikar Kriya, Torah and Dalar and Aleph, the Mamascha Psak. Torah just gives you all the Piskei Halacha there. So Torah says because the Yikar Kriya Megillah is Bayom, the Kriya Balayla is of less importance. So to what extent is that so? Rav Schachter liked that suggestion of Rav Shlomo Vilna that the Kriyas HaMegillah Leil Purim is only introduced in the days of the Amoraim. All the mitzvahs are really only by Yom, not by Laila. Why? The Yontif begins in the morning. Every Yontif begins at Seisot Tocham, Vayer Vayvoker, at sundown, except for Purim, because Purim originally was established by Haman. Yud Dalet is the day he's going to kill all the Jews, and by the Goyim is Halayla Halach Achayim. All the days now, the Goyim counted from midnight is the beginning of the new day. But in earlier generation, they didn't count from midnight. They would count Halayla Halach Achayim. Instead of doing like the Jews do, that the days begin by Yer Vayvoker, so by them the day begins with Alos HaShachar. So that day that was established by Haman, Hipol Pulhur Agorol, he drew lots and he determined he's going to kill all the Jews on Yud Dalet Ador. So that was going to be starting from the morning, Yud Dalet Ador. So when we made it into a Yontif, it's patterned after the Goyish Yontif. It begins in the morning. I read the Megillah Balal Yisei Bracha. So Rav Soloveitchik said, you're reading the Megillah on Erev Purim. It's not really Purim. There's one opinion in the Torah that when you daven Ma'ariv before you read the Megillah on the first night of Purim, you don't say Al Anisim. You only say Al Anisim if you daven Ma'ariv after Mikra Megillah. Because it's not really Purim. The Takana was to say Al Anisim on Purim. It's not yet Purim till it comes the morning. If you read the Megillah already, then it makes sense that you say Al Anisim in the Shemana. So we don't follow that psak. We follow, that's in Shulchan Aruch it says, when you daven Ma'ariv, say Al Anisim, even though you're davening Ma'ariv before you read the Megillah, you shouldn't fall in and observe that sheet. But that's what that sheet is based on. And why? What's this new takana? You should read the Megillah Balayla. So they said over the Netziv has this in his commentary on Chumash in the introduction to Chumash Shmos. So he writes, "What's the Lashon Gemara? Chayvan likas Megillah Balayla u'Lashanosa b'yom." Why did it say Lashanosa? Should it say Likar Megillah Balayla b'yom? You have to read the Megillah Leil Purim and Yom Purim. So he said the reading of the Megillah Leil Purim is like in a Beis Medrash. The Rebbe announces in advance what he's going to give Shir on today, and then Talmidim make a leinin on the Gemara. Then they come to Shir, they're prepared. So then when they come to Shir, they can understand it. They'll understand the Shir better. If they come totally unprepared, they won't follow. So in Yiddish, there's an expression: the year is very long and the memory is very short. So from one year to the other, you don't remember all the details of the Purim story. So the Takanas Cham was to read the Megillah Leil Purim in order that the reading in the daytime should be more Bishlei Musam. You're not yotze anything. Rav Schachter used to give exaggerated mishalim. he said his grandfather Rab Chaim always knew how to make exaggerated mishal. I remember when we were learning Gittin, he said this. Chaim has a mashal. If a man wants to divorce his wife and he puts the get from his right hand to his left hand, then he cuts off the arm and he sews it onto his wife's arm. A mashal, is it good or not? He would give exaggerated. Rav Soloveitchik, also an expert in making up mishal. So he said, we read the Megillah Balayla so that when we hear it Bayom, we'll understand it better. Because since last year, we forgot all the details. So it's really only a hachana. So he gave a mashal. A person hears the Megillah Leil Purim, and he dies before he doesn't have a chance to hear the Megillah Bayom. So there's no kiyum at all. The whole kiyum of reading the Megillah Balayla is as a hachana to the Kriya Bayom. But if it doesn't lead up to that hachana, he dies before he reads the Megillah Bayom. So there's no kiyum mitzvah at all. That's what the Netziv writes in this Akdama Tichum Mishmos. U'Lashanosa Bayom, the second laning of the Megillah will be more complete. The whole idea of reading the Megillah Balayla should be, the Kriya Bayom should be more complete.
Didn't Haman establish the 13th?
What?
I thought Haman established the 13th of Adar to kill the Jews, and then that's why it's in the Nachum on the 14th.
Okay, I said it over wrong.
No, I'm just saying, like, it's not the same day, so why would it follow Haman?
I don't know. That's what Rav Soloveitchik thought. That's, he started off, it was going to be the day of celebration. The Goyim were going to have a day of celebration that they finally wiped out the Jewish people, and their day of celebration was going to be starting from the morning of the 14th. So we made it a celebration for us that we were nitzel from. That is correct what you said. Yeah. There is a strange din in Shulchan Aruch. The Mechaber quotes a din that if you're reading the Megillah, a private Kriyas HaMegillah, you don't have a minyan of 10 people, and so one person is going to read the Megillah. Everybody's going to be out to it. And some of the people who are listening know how to read the Megillah on their own. So it says in the Shulchan Aruch, they can't be Yotze with Shemei Kahina unless you have a minyan of 10 people. Why not? You say Kiddush, you say Havdalah. Everybody can say their own Kiddush and Havdalah. You say Shemei Kahina. Why shouldn't you be able to be Yotze Shemei Kahina? Whoever heard that you need a minyan to apply Shemei Kahina? They're very strange. So the Mishnah Berurah quotes the Magen Avraham, who explains, one of the Rishonim has this. He explains the Shita that's quoted in the Shulchan Aruch, that they feel that it's based on a din. If you look in the Ran in the end, the Ran on the Rif in the end of Maseches Rosh Hashanah, so the Ran quotes a line from the Yerushalmi that there are 3 areas of halacha where we don't allow Shemei Ka'oina. One is by Kabbalah Samach Shemaim, when you recite Kriya Shema. There are Cheretz dictates you should be Mekabel Amach Shemaim on your own. You shouldn't just rely on someone else saying Kriya Shema, and you'll be Yotze with Shemei Ka'oina. Then Tefillah, when you daven. So if you need a parnasa, you need a shidduch, you need a refuah, you should ask directly. You shouldn't rely on someone else and just say Amen at the end of the bracha. Then with respect to eating food, the Yerushalmi says, you didn't ask your friend to eat a second sandwich for you. You ate the sandwich. So you should say the bracha before and after. You shouldn't rely on Shemei Kahina. We always do. On Shabbos, one person cuts the lechem mishnah and he gives everybody. Everybody's yotze with Shemei Kahina. So that's a Rav Soloveitchik. And also, in the days of the Gemara, when they would bench Benzuman, they wouldn't have each person bench. Only the Mizaman would say the whole benching out loud and everybody would be Yotze. So it's not based on Shemei Kahina. So there she gave a whole Yortzeit shir on this topic, based on Dinim and Mishnah Berurah and Gemara. So he put everything together. Mishnah Berurah has it basically. That when you bench Benzuman, it's not based on Shemei Kahina. It's a din, the whole chabura, the whole group of people is obligated to offer bich samos and bachabura. And the same thing when you say hamoitzi, if everybody's sitting at the table, so the whole chabura is only obligated to offer one hamoitzi for the whole chabura. And nafkemin is ledina. So that's what the Magen Avraham says over here, that these Rishonim who came up with this idea, or of the opinion based on the Gemara, that reading the Megillah is kriyas ksuvim, like we have kriyas HaTorah, we have kriyas Haftarah from the Nevi'im, and then sometimes you have kriyas ksuvim v'tzibur. In the days of the Gemara, Tosfos points out in Perek Bamim Adlikin, days of the Gemara, the practice used to be that they had a Haftarah Shabbos afternoon to Mincha from Tehillim. We don't have it anymore. But in the days of the Gemara, it's like that. So they had a kriya from ksuvim, from Tehillim. So here also it's a kriyas ksuvim. But in addition to being a kiyum of kriyas ksuvim, it seems that it's just a story, but the story implicitly contains hoidoya and implicitly contains a tefillah. So Rav Soloveitchik pointed out that when the Amoraim came up with this idea that you have to learn the Megillah Leil Purim, each one quoted a different pasuk. So one quoted the pasuk, that's in that chapter in Tehillim that the Gemara has a tradition. Esther Hamalka recited that chapter when she went into the Beis Hamalka. David HaMelech is the one who put together Tehillim. So it was there. David HaMelech was before the Bais Rishon. And Esther was the end of the Golus bubble, the end of the 7 years of Golus bubble. The Gemara says she recited that Perek in Tehillim. Keli Kemi Lo Ma'azav Tanim, when she went into the Beis HaMalchutz, uninvited, unauthorized. So one of the psukim there says, Alakai, I cry out to you bayom, and if you don't answer, I cry out again balayla. Balayla v'lo damila. I'll daven and repeat the same bakasha over and over and over again. So the Amoraim are assuming that Kriyas HaMegillah is an implicit form of tefillah, the davening. And then the Gemara says we don't recite Hallel on Purim. We recite Hallel Chanukah. We don't recite on Purim. The Gemara asks, why is there a difference between the two? So one of the three explanations given by the Gemara is Kriyas Zu Halela. When you read the Megillah, that's implicitly a form of Hallel. You don't say Shem Hashem. You just tell over a story. But implicitly, we are implying that it's implicitly a tefillah, just like He saved us then, He should save us now. And implicitly, also, it's a form of halal. So that's what these Rishonim say. And tefillah, you don't allow Shamei Ka'ina unless you have a minyan. Or, the Gemara says, Shlosha Shachla Kachas Chayovim Lezame. If three people ate together, there's a chiyav. They shouldn't split up. You have each one bench on his own. They should all bench mezuman. One birchas hamazon, the whole chabura. What if you have shnaim shachal kachas? So that's a machlokes in the Gemara. Is it a rishus? Is it optional to make a zimun or no? So we paskan no. Shnaim shachal kachas mitzvah lechalek. More correct is each one should say his own birchas hamazon, because you don't allow shemei kohen. If you have shlosha, then it's one bench and have the whole chabura. But if you only have shnaim, that's not enough to be considered a chabura, and we don't allow shemei kohen. What it said in the Yerushalmi that there are three cases where they don't allow Shemei Kohen. The Yerushalmi say the Babli holds like that also, but it's not as explicit as in the Yerushalmi. They put all three together, and the Babli is based on this Mishnah and the other Mishnah. He put it all together, so the same as the Yerushalmi. So the Magen Avraham explains that because we treat Kriyas HaMegillah as a form of tefillah, just like HaKadosh Baruch Hu gave us a Yeshua then, He should give us now. So that's why we don't allow Shemei Kaina unless it's sefer or bur. The Gemara says Shnaim she'achlu mitzvah lechalek. Each one should bench on his own unless one is a sefer, one is a bur. One knows how to bench and the other one is ignorant. He doesn't know how to bench. So if the bur doesn't know how to bench, you have no choice. The sefer mevarach or bur yotze b'berchasei. Then you do permit Shemei Kaina. Why is that? So that's a question. If you don't allow Shemei Kaina, how come it changes over there? So the Rav Schachter didn't say this, but the Mishnah Brura says because that whole din in the Yerushalmi is only midrabanan. The three exceptions to the rule that you don't allow Shemei Kohen is only midrabanan. And if it's a Shas Hatchak, you have no brera, then you revert back to the din deras. That's what the Mishnah Brura says. So that's what it says in Shulchan Aruch. If you have less than a minyan, you don't have 10 people listening to the Mikra Megillah, and some of them know how to read the Megillah on their own. So then you don't allow Shemei Kohen because it's a form of tefillah. And in tefillah you don't allow Shemei Kohen. Unless you have Asor. That's a Gemara in Masech, the end of Rosh Hashanah, that the Shliach Tzibur Mimoitzi, the Baki, Shliach Tzibur, originally they instituted Chazaras Hashatz because there were many Eina Bikim. People didn't know how to daven. So the Shleach Tzibah can be Moitzi the Ena Baki. But can he be Moitzi a Baki? Marsa, he can't be Moitzi the Baki. Unless you have Asara. If you have 10 people, then the Shleach Tzibah can even be Moitzi the Baki as well. Many years ago, Rav Soloveitchik spoke in the Lampwood Auditorium on Yom Ha'atzmaut, and and he wrote up the drasha that he gave. He's delivered the drasha in Yiddish, and he wrote it up. Then it was translated into Hebrew. So that was called Kol Dodi Dofek. That was, he was knocking on the stender. Kol Dodi Dofek. A long drasha, and he was a very dramatic speaker. And he was speaking about the 6 defikas. The Baruch Shalom was knocking on the door. We should come back to Eretz Yisrael. We should all go to Eretz Yisrael. So part of what he didn't print everything that he said. Now, part of what he said was, I don't remember if they had any of this printed. He said, we have a minhag that before every Yom Tov, where there's a Chi of Simcha, you want to have a serious day. So before Sukkot, you have Yom Kippur. Before Rosh Hashanah, the minhag is, there used to be a minhag, everybody fasted on Erev Rosh Hashanah. Before Pesach, you have Tainis B'choros. And before Purim, you have Tainis Esther. And before Shavuos, you have the period of Sfira. You observe Avelis and Sfira. So we always have a period of seriousness, Avelis or Tonis, to make sure that the Simcha doesn't get out of hand. We shouldn't get drunk and we shouldn't celebrate like the Goyim would celebrate. So he said, he thinks that the minhag Avelis and Sfira is a beautiful minhag to tone down the Simcha on Shavuos, so we have Avelis. And he doesn't think that it's right. I don't think they printed this. I don't think he wrote this in the Drush. He doesn't think it's right that in Eretz Yisrael, it means Merkaz Harav, no one else. Merkaz Harav, Eretz Yehud insists that everybody has to be clean shaven on Yom Ha'atzmaut. And if a boy would come to hear his Drush on Yom Ha'atzmaut with a Sfira beard, he would say, Hakora Spana Vamtzabo. I look at your faces and I say, you're not Maminim. You don't believe that we're holding this Aschalta the Geula. And they would arrange for weddings on Yom Ha'atzmaut and take haircuts and so on. So he thought that wasn't right. He thought that we should observe Yom Ha'atzmaut, but we should observe the minhagim of Avelis anyway. This is what he said when he gave that. That drasha was a few years after Hakamas HaMedina. Now it's already many years later. It's already 75 years after Hakamas HaMedina. So it's maybe now he would change his opinion. But that's what he said at that time. I remember I once asked Rav Soloveitchik that the minhag is that there are 2 psukim in the Megillah that the Balkara says over twice because we're not sure what the correct text is. Ish lomad bifnehem or lifnehem. So many Balakriyas say it twice. And then it says Lashmin v'laharoik or Lashmin laharok. So I mentioned to Rav Soloveitchik that in the Or Zarua he talks about a suffix. He doesn't mention these 2. He didn't have any suffix yet. He has only a different pasuk. By Shanecha es narasecha, Shanecha v'es narasecha, with a vav or without a vav. So I said, nobody says that over twice. If we're so worried about bifneim, why don't we say this? So he said, come on, this is also a chumrah. Because the din is that even if you mispronounce a word, it's not, if it's not Mishana so Inyan, so you're a bit of it. So I was surprised he don't even try l'chatchila to say the correct. If the Balkari knows that it's a suffix, he thought that it wasn't necessary even to say over anything twice. He says, we don't have to say anything twice because it's not Mishana saying it. Wow. Yeah, what's the din if a person forgets Yalav Yava in Ma'ariv of Rosh Chodesh? He doesn't have to repeat the davening. What if he forgets Yalav Yava in the daytime Nishmanes? He has to repeat the davening on Rosh Chodesh. So what happens if the person forgets Ritzei or Yalav Yava on the benching and he reminds himself after he says B'nai V'rachma B'Yushalayim Amen before he starts Hatay V'Ameitiv? So they have printed in the Siddur a special Nusach HaBracha from the Gemara and Brachas. So there was a machlokas between the Ri, Baal HaTosfos, and his son Rabbeinu Hachanan. Ben Yochanan was killed by the Catholics, by the Crusaders, I think. But you have on different Mesichtas, they quote the original set of Taisan Avodah Zarah is by the Rabbeinu Yochanan, and they quote him every so often in Taisan. So this was a machlokes. Rabbeinu Yochanan thought that just like if you finish the bracha, you didn't say Ritzei Alav Yavai, but you didn't start Atov Ameitav yet, so then you can insert the Haskara for Rosh Hashanah, for Shabbos and Yantav there. So the same is true in Shemana Esrei, that you're supposed to say Alav Yavai in the middle of Ritzei before B'Sechel Zainu Eneinu, and if you finished B'Sechel Machzor Shchanos Alitzin, you didn't start Moedim yet, so then you can insert Alav Yavai over there. So the Reed disagreed with the Rabbeinu Yochanan, with his son. And then the Yerzarua has the whole story that they were once in Paris together. Rabbeinu Tam and the Reed was a nephew of the Rabbeinu Tam, Paris together. There was a conference of Rabbanim, and they were all there. So it was on Rosh Chodesh, and the Reed was davening Shemana Esrei, and next to Rabbeinu Tam, he heard that he forgot Yalav Yavai, and before he started Moedim, he said, like the Rabbeinu Yochanan said, he said Yalav Yavai there. So from that time on, the Ri also gave in. He followed like that. The Vilna Gaon thinks that the Ri was right, and you shouldn't do that. But the Psak HaMekubal in Shulchan Aruch is that if you forgot Yalav Yavai and you didn't start Moedim yet, so you do say Yalav Yavai there. Whatever is supposed to be, Yalav Yavai is supposed to be in the middle of the Bracha Ritzei, the Bracha of Avodah. So it means either in the middle or before, in between the Bracha Shema Koleinu and Hatav Shimcha L'Chanolo, the Bracha Vaydoa, so you should, in between those two brachas, you should mention Yalav Yavai in the Shemona Esrei. So it preferably is in the middle of the bracha of Ritzei, and if you didn't say in the middle of the bracha, you can say it after, but as long as you didn't start Moedim yet. That's what we assume. So many other poskim assume that this carries over to the Saint Talamatar as well. You forgot to say the same Talmud to the bracha and Baruch Aleinu, and you didn't start the next bracha after, what's the next bracha? I forgot already. In the Shemona Esrei. Baruch Hashem, Kabbalah Shefagod L'Cheviseinu. So you didn't start the next bracha yet, so you can say the same Talmud over. Rav Soloveitchik thought that it's not necessarily correct. He thought the same Talmud to the bracha is in the middle of a sentence. To us, the same Talmud is the middle of a whole sentence. So the Chachamim, when Misaknish is there, it's part of a sentence. So if you finish Baruch Hashem, you didn't start Kabbalah Shefagod yet. It's not part of the sentence. How can you be Yotze there? Yalav Yavai is an independent paragraph. Okay, every saying it can stand alone. Yalav Yavai can stand alone. So that's what the Rabbeinu Yochanan was Mechadesh, that Haskaras Yalav Yavai should be in between Shema Koleinu and Hoidah. In between Shema Koleinu and Hoidah. So either in the middle of it, say, an insert, you have a whole independent paragraph, or after you say B'Sechel Zainu, before you start Moedim, so it's the right place. Because it's really a paragraph that can stand alone. Well, the same Talmud of the Bracha, a person forgot to say Masha Baruch HaGeshem. So you're going to say, and he already finished L'chayeh HaMeisim. Then he's going to say after L'chayeh HaMeisim, U'Masha Baruch HaGeshem. They were never misaken it as part of the Chasimus HaBracha. They're misaken it part of a sentence. These are description of HaKadosh Baruch Hu to Orei Hashem. So if you got to say Masha Baruch in the middle of the bracha, you got to say it afterwards. It doesn't fit in. It's supposed to be one long sentence over there. So Soloveitchik was not so convinced that the common practice in Achronim is that they think it even applies to the Saint Alamatar and Masha Baruch as well.
Shema Kolinu would be okay, even though it's not also part of that bracha. It's in the same time.
Okay.
And the minhag is to say it in Shema Kolinu, no?
Yeah, if you forgot to say it Talamat, you can say it in Shema Kolinu.
Why is that better?
That's bakasha. All the middles are bakasha, and the bakasha should be in the middle of a paragraph, middle of a sentence. The Shema Kolinu will be in the middle of a sentence, and the Baruch Aleinu is in the middle of a sentence. But to say it in between one bracha and the other, it's not the middle of a sentence, and it's not an insert. It can't stand alone. Saying Talmud Arach Ben Adam doesn't stand alone. It's supposed to be part of a long sentence, part of a long paragraph. every so often Purim falls out on a Sunday. So when do you have Tainus Esther on Shabbos? So we don't fast Tainus Esther on Shabbos. So we usually Magdim Tainus Esther to Thursday. But other Rishonim say you don't Magdim to Thursday, you Magdim to Friday. Why you should move it up to Thursday? It's a Shaila, Lechatchili, not allowed to be Goyzer Tainus on a Friday. It's called being Goyzer Tainus. So it's an old minute to have Tainus Esther. We're not inventing a new wine farm. We're baking in Mugdam. Making a Mugdam. It's not as what did Gemara say? Agdumi Paranusa loy makdemina. The other Tanaisim, it does make sense. Instead of, let's say, Tisha B'Av falls out on Shabbos, so you're gonna fast the day before. Gemara said that does make sense. Agdumi Paranusa loy makdemina. So that's the Tanaisim when you're fasting in commemoration of a tragedy that occurred. But here, Tainus Esther, it's called, the Rishonim call it a Tainus Shel Simcha. So that's why it's different. So it's not a violation of Agdumi Paranusa. So you can have it before. But that's a shaila before. Is it considered like being Kaveh Tainus on Erev Shabbos, which is not right? Kadesh Lo Yikans to Shabbos Kishuhum Mu'uno. Or they say no, it's not. You're not being Kaveh New Tainus. You're being Magdim the Tainus that season of the year. So Rab Chaim was a Levi. So sometimes they would want to give them an aliyah on Tainus Esther Mukdam, that was on a Thursday when Purim is on Sunday, and Tainus Esther should have been on Shabbos, it's a Mukdam. So Rab Chaim wouldn't want to take the aliyah. He would tell the guy by advance he shouldn't give him the second aliyah Levi, because maybe it's by Mincha, because maybe the Tainus is supposed to be on Friday. So he's saying a bracha on an aliyah, shaloi kedin. He already said brichas haTorah in the morning. So if you get an aliyah kedin, then say another brichas haTorah. If you just take out a sefer Torah in the middle of nowhere and you're laying, that's a tshuva in the Meshiv Davar. The Netziv has a collection of tshuvas. So they sent a shayla from Chicago to the Netziv in Europe. What happened was someone donated a sefer Torah to the shul. So they were dancing and singing with music and everything on a Sunday, but everybody has off from work. Then they came to shul, so they decided to learn Kriyas HaTorah. So we're auctioning off the aliyahs. They gave 3 aliyahs, auctioning off the aliyahs. So someone said, what do you mean? You can't learn Kriyas HaTorah on a regular Sunday. So they didn't know whom to ask, so they sent the Shalat to the Netziv. So the Netziv writes like that. He thinks if it's a day on which you learn Kriyas HaTorah, and you're going to learn a second time, so that's not a bracha levatol. I'm not sure why. But if it's a day you're not supposed to learn, on Sunday, there's no Kriyas HaTorah there. You've got to decide to learn Kriyas HaTorah. That's a bracha levatol. Saying a bracha on aliyah. So that's Rab Chaim was choshish for that opinion. There are 2 opinions in the Rishonim, whether they fast on Thursday or on Friday. One Purim falls out on Sunday. So he would avoid taking an aliyah on either day. The Rambam writes Kriyas HaTorah from a Sefer Torah has to be Sefer Torah shechaser Isachas. You don't learn from such a Sefer Torah. But if the Megillah is chaser Isachas, you do learn up until Ad Ruboy. So you can have 49% of the letters in the Megillah are missing, as long as 51% is there, so you go Basarai. So why is Sefer Torah different? So he wasn't sure. Is the din, let's say you have a Haftarah. So you learn, here in Yeshiva, they learn Haftarah from a klaf. So they have old Nevi'im, and sometimes the Nevi'im have letters that are rubbed out. There's missing a lot of Oisias in the Nevi'im. So is that an exception to the rule by Megillah Sesta? Because Nikris Seifim and Nikris Igeres, maybe Nikris Igeres, we're celebrating the fact that the Jewish people accepted the Torah Sheba'al Peh again. That's how the Medrash Tanchuma, Parshas Noach says that the Kim of the Kiblu, the second Kabbalah Sator, was a Kabbalah on the Torah Sheba'al Peh. On the Torah Shebechsav, they accepted Beratz, and they said Nasim and Ishma. Torah Sheba'al Peh is very difficult to learn, very difficult to observe, a lot of details, so they didn't want to accept it. So that's why they needed a second Kabbalah. So there was a machlekes going on for generations, whether the 23 svarim in Tanakh or 24 svarim, when the Megillah Sesta is part of Kisvei HaKodesh. Final psak was the Megillah Sesta is part of the Kisvei HaKodesh. But maybe part of the reason why there were those who thought should not be part of Kisvei HaKodesh because the whole celebration is we'll mekabel Torah Shabbat Peh b'ratzon. So maybe dafke it should not be part of the Torah Shemichsavs, even though we paskan it is part of the Kisvei HaKodesh, but we still say Nikras Sefer of Nikras Igeres. Not 100% the same as the other swarm. So maybe this kula that Nichtav Rubai, even though miut of the letters are missing, maybe it's only a kula in Megillah Esther because Nikras Igeres, or maybe it's only a chumrah in Sefer Torah because it says in the end of Chumash Dumahika Chalas Moshe Lichtav is called Torah Ad Tuma. And then he gave it to the Levim. They should put it next to Aron Abris and the Kodesh HaKadosh. And maybe the exception to the rule is the Sefer Torah. Sefer Torah has to be Ad Tuma. So that's Shaila. That's a Shaila by Novi. What's the din by Nevim? Is it good if a couple of letters are missing? So there's a Tshuvas HaRidva. Rav Soloveitchik didn't mention the Tshuvas HaRidva. Tshuvas HaRidva talks about the topic, and there's a stira. Mosad Rav Kook printed around 80 years ago. They had a Ksav Yad of Tshuvas HaRidva. So in one line it says it's Nikras Igeres, that's why we make it. On the other line it says Sefer Torah is the exception to the rule. It's a stira menei of day. So they had a lot to say on all the Yom Tov. Okay. Purim.